I am a 45-year-old male, and my wife, Stacy, is a 43-year-old female. We had been married for 5 years. This was my first marriage, and I had been head over heels in love with Stacy. I met her at a Target parking lot. She needed help loading groceries and other items into her car, and I happily offered to help. Stacy was wearing a white skirt and purple top that day. And she was looking so gorgeous that I was ready to help her with whatever she needed help with. I never had a good experience with relationships. But that day I mustered the courage to ask for Stacy's phone number, which she happily gave me. I phoned her the next day and we set up a date. It was that simple with her. Before meeting Stacy, I was one of those guys who felt shy and nervous around women, but everything was easy with Stacy. I was able to open up my heart to her. Our first date went very well. We spoke about food, politics, and our childhood, and we instantly connected, so we decided to meet again, which is how we eventually got into a serious relationship. Stacy told me she was previously married and she lost custody of her 4-year-old child because of her drug problem. She was suffering from depression and her friend introduced her to drugs. It was not Stacy's fault, and she was doing everything she could to stay sober. My sympathy was with her. Her recovery story made me cry. I was witnessing how hard she was working to keep fit. She used to go to the gym frequently. She used to go to therapy regularly. She was eating a balanced diet. All to get her child back, and I had a lot of respect for the hustle she had been doing. We kept meeting, and inevitably I fell in love and proposed to her for marriage. My mother had issues with Stacy's previous marriage and child, but Stacy was the only woman in my life. My mother was tired of seeing me single all my life. So she ignored Stacy's past and accepted her into our family. In front of our friends and family, Stacy and I tied the knot in California. Her former husband Sean and her child also came to give their blessing. We were both thrilled and pleased with our life. Early days of our marriage were delightful. Considering Stacy was still recovering from her addictions and depression, she had no stable job or income, so I was the one spending on everything. Stacy's mother wanted her to have a stable marriage this time, so she forced us to buy a house, for which I had to take out a mortgage. I had been also paying for Stacy's therapy and expensive medicines for her better health and quick recovery. I had no complaints about any of this because I was doing everything out of love. But after our marriage, Stacy had started this new behavior. After every week or two she started throwing anger tantrums. She would throw the remote or glass or whatever she found during her anger episodes. One time she broke our dining table, after throwing her anger outburst. She would cry for hours and I would have to comfort her. The next day, she would act normal and begin blaming her depression medications for her anger. I would soothe her and do my best to be there for her, but her manic episodes were becoming more intense. She wanted her kid back, but I was powerless to do anything about it. She would spend my thousands of dollars on her son. My close friends began to warn me about Stacy because they believed that Stacy should have taken some responsibility, but I had no objections since I wanted to be a loving spouse. Not a terrible one. That's how 3 years of our marriage had passed. I wanted children, but with her rehabs and everything, she wasn't ready for it either. She was obsessed with her son. At this point, I had started showing irritation towards Stacy. She was treating me as if I was her nurse, and my entire purpose was to take care of her, but I had had enough. I stopped giving Stacy money. I would leave the home when she threw tantrums or I would start shouting at her, and we had started arguing every day. The only good thing about our marriage was Stacy's parties. Stacy was good at being a hostess. She would arrange food and drinks, decorate our house, and, most importantly, wear shiny outfits. She would look like a diva in those outfits. She would invite my friends and dance in front of everyone. My friends admired Stacy, and I felt proud of her when she was admired by my friends. She would also allow me to hang out with her friends and would ask her friends to give me extra care. So those parties somehow saved our marriage by giving us a chance to forget our differences and the madness of our daily lives. In one of those parties, I met Stacy's friend Rosie, who Unlike Stacy, was a simple girl who knew about Stacy's condition, her past, and her troubled nature, so Rosie was showing me sympathy because she genuinely cared about me. But as a man who was not receiving any love or respect from his wife, I mistook Rosie's sympathy for something else. I thought she was interested in me because I was so deprived of love and care that anyone who showed me any care, I would fall for them. At one of Stacy's parties, when Stacy was dancing to loud music and I was tired and sitting alone on a terrace, Rosie saw me and brought a drink and food for me. I sat with her, we were eating food and talking about life. Rosie was married, but her husband was a cheater, and she had been bearing all of this because she wanted to give him a chance. She was a conservative and graceful woman. She didn't want to break her marriage. Rosie listened to my marital problems, and this brought tears in my eyes because I was so isolated and keeping everything to myself. Sharing about them with Rosie made me emotional. Rosie stood and took my hands in her hands to console me after seeing my cry, and I hugged her. Rosie was shocked, but I didn't let her go. I needed that hug. Rosalie held me back. We were both having our moment, and I was feeling better after months. That night I felt lighter and happier. I didn't want to cheat, but I wanted to have some peace. That party ended, but I knew Rosie and I would meet again. I had taken her number and knew she would be there at a next party as well. I wanted to wait for Stacy's next party to meet her, but I couldn't. 2 days later, I messaged Rosie and told her I wanted to meet again. We decided to meet at a cafe, and that's how Rosie and I began our secret relationship. We both needed each other. Stacy was so self-absorbed that she never noticed my absence or changed behavior. She only cared about me paying for her expenses and providing for her food and medicines. Soon, I realized that Stacy just wanted me to support her comfortable lifestyle, which she was achieving by marrying me. I started ignoring her weekly tantrums. They no longer affected me because I had Rosie to rely on emotionally. I began coming home late, and spending weekends with Rosie. We even took a short trip to Italy to escape the madness of our spouses. Since the day I met Rosie, I had become a happier man. 3 months later, Stacy arranged one of her parties, which she used to host every 2 to 3 months. At this party, Stacy wore a cream maxi dress. She was more dressed up this time and looked absolutely gorgeous. I hadn't noticed her in 3 months, and she had lost some extra weight, appearing even more beautiful. Everyone was praising her. She came and sat next to me, kissed me, and asked how she looked. Rosie was there and felt uncomfortable. Her face turned red when Stacy kissed me. I couldn't stop Stacy, as she was my wife. Stacy stayed by my side that night despite her friends and guests being there.
She held my hand and asked Rosie to take our picture. It was as though she knew what was going on between Rosie and me. Rosie took our picture and then left the room, but I couldn't follow her because Stacy was holding my arm. She didn't mention Rosie, but I had a feeling that she knew something. After a few moments, someone called for Stacy to handle food arrangements, and she left me to take care of things. I didn't immediately go after Rosie, but I was worried about her. We were pretending not to know each other, but I sent her a text to apologize when the food was being served. Rosie came back into the hallway but ignored me. We ate and had drinks, and that's when Stacy started dancing. I knew her dancing sessions lasted a long time and that she forgot about everyone when she started dancing, so I asked Rosie to go to the terrace. We both left the hallway to have a conversation on the terrace. Rosie was upset about me being so close to Stacy during the party, and I was giving her explanations and trying to patch things up with her. Rosie, being a sensible woman, understood my situation but needed comforting words and reassurance that I was still with her and that our relationship was not one-sided. I told her how important she was to me and offered her comfort. My words made her happy and Rosie started kissing me. Unfortunately, Stacy arrived at that moment and began laughing, saying how we were fooling her and how she could destroy us both by revealing everything to everyone. She insulted Rosie and pretended to be the victim. Even though Stacy's actions had led me to this affair, I should have divorced her instead of cheating, but I knew she would cause a big drama instead. I found an easier way out and began an affair with Rosie. Stacy then started shouting, claiming she had a recording of Rosie and me, and began blackmailing us. She said she would stay silent and keep everything to herself if we paid her. She demanded that Rosie and I could continue our relationship if we kept paying. We were shocked by her demands. But Rosie didn't want her to leak our video because she feared losing her job and business due to a bad reputation and being labeled a homewrecker. I didn't want to meet Stacy's demands. But Rosie pressured me, and we ended up making a deal with Stacy. I felt a deep sense of relief because, finally, I no longer had to pretend in front of Stacy that our marriage was still a genuine thing. Now, I could openly see Rosie without any pretense. Rosie and I had begun spending time at my house, where we enjoyed the beautiful terrace while Stacy stayed in the lounge or another room. It had become clear that Stacy and my marriage had officially turned into a joke. As days went by, we kept paying Stacy to keep her quiet about our affair, but I was growing increasingly weary of this arrangement and desperately wanted to be rid of her. One night, the universe seemed to align in my favor. After coming back from the office, Rosie and I had met at a random cafe, and upon returning home, I went to the kitchen to get some water, expecting to find Stacy there, but she was nowhere to be seen. The TV lounge was empty, which led me to believe she was outside. I decided to go to our bedroom to get some rest, to my utter shock. When I opened the bedroom door, I saw Stacy in bed with our neighbor, right on our marital bed. Stacy and I had stopped sharing the bedroom, so Stacy assumed I wouldn't come into the bedroom. And I thought Stacy wasn't home, so I could sleep in the bed that night. This confusion gave me the perfect opportunity to take my revenge. I immediately took out my phone and started recording Stacy with our neighbor. Stacy didn't see me because our bedroom has drawers near the entrance, so I hid behind the cupboards and recorded them. Once I had the evidence, I began shouting at them. Both Stacy and the neighbor were shocked to see me. I slapped my neighbor and threw him out of the house. Then, I demanded that Stacy delete the videotape of Rosie and me immediately, or I would show her video to the court. I warned her that she would lose custody of her child forever if I did that. She deleted the video of Rosie and me. Clearly terrified and aware that she was on the brink of losing everything she loved, Stacy admitted she would stop blackmailing me and would no longer ask for money, but that wasn't enough for me. I demanded more. I wanted her to leave my house and end our relationship for good. I made a significant fuss about her cheating and insisted she vacates the house immediately. She had never seen me act this way before and was completely unprepared for my threats. She never imagined I would use the threat of going to court or leverage her child's custody against her. But I did that because I have had enough. I gave her just 24 hours to leave. Updates. The next morning, when I woke up, I found Stacy still in my house, making breakfast. She pleaded with me, begging for another chance, but my heart had no room for her anymore. If Rosie hadn't come into my life and shown me what true love really feels like, I might have considered giving Stacy another chance. However, I realized that my marriage with Stacy had become nothing more than a business arrangement where I paid for her living expenses, and in return, I received nothing of value. When the universe presented me with an opportunity to free myself from this marriage, I knew I couldn't pass it up. I firmly told Stacy that she had to leave and that our marriage was beyond repair. I called Stacy's mother to explain the situation, and she came over to take Stacy away. Her mother was aware of Stacy's unreasonable behavior throughout our marriage. Once Stacy was gone, I contacted my lawyer to initiate the divorce process. Although our divorce is currently in progress, Rosie has already moved in with me. My life has improved significantly, and I am genuinely happy with Rosie. She has also filed for divorce from her husband. We are living together and are taking our time before making any decisions about marriage. While Rosie would like us to get married soon, we both agree that we need to finalize our divorces first and fully enjoy this period of our lives together. Sometimes I feel guilty for blackmailing Stacy like that even though she was doing this to me first, but I was also cheating on her. Sometimes I call her mom to know about her well-being and she told me Stacy's condition is getting worse and this news made me more guilty. So please advise me if I did the wrong thing and should I offer money to Stacy so that she could use it on her mental health. I want to know people's opinion on my story because I want to do the right thing. Thank you for listening to my story. Your feedback matters a great deal. Please like and subscribe.